Hi, my name is Andrew Kurd, and today I'll be giving a verbal abstract about the review article, Genetic-Based Methods for Agricultural Insect Pest Management. This article states that many agricultural economies are affected by insects and other pests that cause economic harm. Traditional methods of containing these pests are beginning to fail, such as the diamondback moth, which has currently evolved resistances to all classes of synthetic insecticides and some biopesticides. However, advances in biology, rather than chemistry, are starting to provide novel control options. One of these options is the sterile insect technique. Sterile insect technique involves releasing a lot of, involves breeding a lot of sterile insects and then releasing these sterile insects into the wild so that they will compete with, uh, with the non-sterile version of the pest and help to reduce the numbers. This method was originally done by radiating to cause damage to the chromosomes. However, advances in genetics have started to provide other genetic-based variants, such as allowing for a repressible dominant lethal gene that is repressed by the lab diet, so that when the animals will be grown in the lab and when they're released into the wild, they'll pass on the lethal gene and all their offspring will die. Another one of greater importance is a female lethal gene, as this allows for the females to be removed before the insects are released into the wild, and releasing only males is a far superior method than releasing only females, as releasing both sexes allows the sterile insects to court and mate with each other instead of seeking out non-sterile insects. Also, the female lethal gene allows for males to continually pass down this gene after the initial release. Another genetic method that is being used is creating plants with a high toxin dose. The strategy for the high dose toxic plants is to have the plants with a high dose of toxin, but also plant nearby plants with no toxin. If only high toxin plants are planted, then the resistance to the toxin would evolve and spread rapidly throughout the population. By keeping areas that have no toxins, it allows the organisms that have no resistances to thrive and keeps the no resistance gene currently circulating in the gene pool. However, this high dose and refuge strategy is not effective in the long run. It is only and can only delay resistances. After 2 decades of using this plant commercially, it has been reported that some insects insects have already started evolving resistances to the Bt corn and Bt cotton plants. Um, and the article also talks about mathematical modeling. Um, Mathematical modeling is crucial for successful pest management. The mathematical modeling looks at many variables to determine when and where to apply these measures and how much to apply in order to have the most economic and sustainable approach. One of the main important values from the mathematic model is looking at the critical ratio. The critical ratio is determining whether it's the amount of sterile insects to apply to the wild population. Anything above the critical ratio will completely eradicate the pest population, and anything below it will reduce its numbers. And this is good to know because completely eradicating a population could potentially be harmful to the economy. The mathematical models have also found other interesting factors, such as with mosquitoes. It found that applying a lethal gene later in life was actually more beneficial to applying it earlier in life, as the mosquito's larva goes through a fierce competition with each other, and removing this competition would actually um, increase greater mosquito numbers. The article then concludes by talking about current regulations through of genetic management, and how countries are setting up regulations in order to make sure that these new these new plants or insects that are released are not completely harmful to the ecosystem, and that the cost of doing all these of creating these new insects or plants will actually be beneficial to the economy instead of harming it. Uh, Overall, I thought that this review was very informative. It talked about a lot of the advances that have happened in genetic pest management throughout the past decades, and how they're actually solving problems, as with the diamondback moth, using the sterile insect technique, and specifically the genetic version, has helped to reduce its numbers in many of the areas that it was affecting. Um, yeah, thank you for listening to my verbal abstract.